Hello everyone, today we're going to be going over Firelands from a PROG POV as a Warlock. Any of the 3 specs will do. My guild went in full cleared heroic after the buffs this last PTR, session 2, and I just want to make this video to highlight some helpful things that you can use while you're progging these bosses with your guilds. Enjoy. Starting off with Beth. Beth's a kind of weird boss, and it's not really the best for the Warlock kit unless you go upstairs. You have to go upstairs, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. But off rip here, I choose not to use anything. I don't hit any of these spinners. I don't want to proc my trinkets. I want to, when I'm going upstairs, I want to have the most damage possible for Beth herself. And we're gonna have to take this first spinner here, and once it comes down, you can see that I'm just trying to get up as fast as possible. So I get my first spinner and I go up. Now Warlocks are very unique. We can drop our port in a relatively safe location and we won't have to hop up here later using a spinner. But as soon as I'm up here, I'm popping Doomguard, I'm popping everything because the damage up here really matters. I think she caps at 50%. And then she'll go down herself, but she's going to do Smoldering Devastation, this ability right here, 3 times. So you want to push the boss as fast as you can. And up here you can just see your normal rotation. It's going to be up to you to try to watch your health, keep that health stone death coil ready to go because there is a lot of pulsing AoE damage in this area. But our damage profile is really good for this, bursting her down as fast as possible. Now when this Smoldering Devastation is about to go off, you could drop your port in a safe location. You see this pool right here? If this drops on top of your port and you port, you will fall through the ground. So you want to make sure your port's in a safe spot where you're not going to be able to get griefed like this. And right before the Smoldering Devastation starts to be casted, I drop it because I know she's not going to cast the pool anymore. So you stay up here, 3, 2, and you get down before it goes off, or else you will die. You will die. Now, there's a bunch of AoE, so you can stack up, you can hit the ads, you can go nuts. And we're going to wait. Your Doomguard will die. You can see it's targeting my Doomguard. It's going to kill the pets while they're up there. So you want to make sure you're microing your pet downstairs with you. So like spamming follow once you jump down, because sometimes it doesn't follow, right? Now we're going to be waiting. I'm looking for my port beforehand. So once I know the tank's up again, I could run over to it and port straight up, just like that. And you just do your single target rotation to Beth, and you're going to be doing this, I think, 3 total times Smoldering Devastation goes off. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. And we're damaging her, we're downstairs again. We're up again. It's the same thing over and over. Now we're on the 3rd Smoldering Devastation. And we're gonna move forward a little bit. And now after this, she is gonna come down. And hopefully all these ads are dead. Help finish off these ads. Now this is the burst part. This is situationally where Chalice might be really good if you are using a trinket for this phase. Because this is now Death Race, as they're just a softened rage. This damage buff on Beth will just go up as time goes on, and she will do a pulsating damage to your entire raid. You can see it going out here, just a big pulsating damage, and she's literally become just a Patrick-esque type boss where we're just gonna have to do as much damage as possible with the healers cycling their CDs in a good order. So now that's about it. I'm just gonna skip a little bit to the end because it is truly a patchwork where you're cycling CDs, and it's really up to your DPS doing as much as they possibly can and your healers. And that's about it for Beth'tilac. Next boss is Lord Rhyolith. Now Lord Rhyolith is a kind of weird fight where each of the feet have this armor that reduces the damage they take, and you reduce this armor by kind of steering the boss into these volcanoes. So what I like to do is I like to multi-dot these because even damage will just make you go straight, so it doesn't really matter that much off the rip here. But there's a bunch of ads that get summoned during this fight, and they have varying degrees of priority. There's a black ooze that'll restore the armor. There's these little fire elementals that are more of a nuisance, these Lord Rhyolith shards that just spawn. And then there's gonna be a big fire elemental that increases the damage your raid takes from fire that needs to be killed pretty much as fast as possible because that'll wipe you guys. But this phase is pretty straightforward. We're just AoEing the ads, and when the raid call is to steer the boss in a different direction, like more on right foot, more on left foot, we're swapping a single target and we're hitting the foot that's being called. This is the fire elemental. You can see we're going to get a buff shortly, this 10% damage. This increases all fire damage the entire raid takes by 10%. So we want to kill this as fast as possible. So we're just bursting it down. The this takes regular amounts of damage, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, kill the ads, drive the boss. If the boss reaches the lava, you'll wipe. Now, you do this for a while until the legs start to take more damage, they have less armor, and you push, and then eventually, I think around 30%, it might be a little bit later, it might be a little bit earlier, give or take. Oh, 25, 29, 28, it might be 25. Now, it'll transition into phase 2, where it becomes kind of like Beth'tilac, where you're just zerging him as fast as possible. This is probably the easiest fight of the tier, in my opinion. And we're just gonna, all together, just do as much damage as possible. You're gonna see with Lust and everything, this boss just, look how fast the health is dropping. He just absolutely melts. I don't know if he was undertuned or something, but it felt like he died very, very quickly. So, AoE the ads, multi-dot the legs, and just single target the legs when they're called, kill the big ad, zerg the boss at the end. If that damage check was harsher, I would say use Moonwell Chalice, potentially, for the extra mastery, but it's a pretty straightforward fight. Next is Mr. Shannox. Now, Shannox has these 2 dogs that are coming with him. This is a boss you can mastery swap on, and I would recommend mastery swapping on. These 2 dogs, you're not going to be killing in Heroic. On normal, you'll probably kill them. But this boss is kind of Patrick-y with a twist. The only things you have to worry about are doing your single target rotation to Shannox, and if this Rage Face dog targets you, you basically drag him to a crystal trap and he sits there. So that in terms of your personal responsibility, that's about it. Otherwise, you just smack the boss. It is a little annoying to maintain Shadow Flame on this boss, as it is moving a lot, which causes you to move a lot, and sometimes you just can't really do that because you're either kiting the boss, but your Demon Leap and your Port will be your best friends for navigating this boss and when you're targeted by the dogs and just kiting stuff around, which is pretty straightforward. But it is truly very Patrick style-esque, and your only responsibility is to kite the dog into a trap if you get targeted. I know Rage Face targets people and needs to get bursted down for, I think, 40,000 damage, but our toolkit doesn't really do well with that. We don't have anything like Shadow Burn. We don't have, I mean, maybe Fell Flame could help, but that's more of a thing for a Boomkin, or some people are using a Marksman Hunter. But you just have to worry about single targeting the boss and kind of following it around and Shadow Flaming it, or you can stand still. There's another Crystal Prism right there, and just single target away, and this is a very good boss for us, I think. Now, one of the most fun fights of the tier for Warlock, Alysrazor. Something that I chose to do is I chose to go Affliction, because you can't really have your pet in the air, but Affliction does some really good damage on this fight. Now, if you're getting sent in the air, this is where all my POVs are from. You will grab 3 feathers, and only 3 feathers, and this will send you into the air. And your job is to collect these fire rings that spawn behind Alysrazor, and stack it, I think, to 24, and then you get a big crit buff. So you'll see that other people are clicking feathers. I'm trying not to over-click feathers because some of them can despawn. But you're gonna see it's kind of hard to see the rings here without the feathers. Let me just make it a little bit nicer, hopefully, just so we could see these feathers and these rings here. Now this is the ring, and it spawns very quickly, and if you don't get to it as fast as possible, you will miss your opportunity to. So with these explosions, those will damage you. You want to avoid those. They can kill you. If they do hit you and you need help in emergency, Death Coil, Healthstone, drain life if you're really down bad, right? And since you don't have a pet up here, you won't be able to use Demon Soul. So when you're ready to use Demon Soul, you can use Soul Burn, Fell Hunter, and then pop your Demon Soul quickly before the pet despawns while you're in the air, which is really helpful. But this is the entire fight, is catching these rings, renewing your buff, your Can Fly buff, and stacking this to 24, and getting a massive crit buff once we hit the max amount. But you're going to be flying through these rings as much as possible. If you stack your buff all the way, and your team needs the extra help, you can go down and put dots onto the ads, which will help kill them a lot faster because you're super haste, super crit based, and it helps out your raid team a little bit, but primarily you shouldn't have to, and if they're managing properly and everybody's alive. Now, it's kind of a little hard to do your rotation and min-max these. This is why mages have a lot easier time, I think. But being able to balance catching every single ring possible, like this first set of rings, I think there's 16 rings, and the faster you get the rings, the faster you get your crit buff, the faster everything is. I mean, it's just... also, during this firestorm, you can drain life, or drain soul, sorry, and hide behind a meteor, and it's still going the entire time during the firestorm, so you can just min-max your damage a little bit there. And once it's done, you can see, if you don't get this first ring after the firestorm, you basically fall to your death. There's no other way. Like, you miss this, you die. So that first ring right after the firestorm, maintaining your buff, is probably the most important thing to do on the fight. Now, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So when I hit 24, and I'm at 24, you can see I have the 75% crit, and it gets renewed every time I hit a ring at this point with 24 stacks. It's capped at 24 stacks. It renews the buff entirely. You're going to lose the buff during the tornado phase because there's no rings spawning during the tornado phase, which is fine. But I'm going to skip a little bit ahead to the tornado phase. You can see the boss is almost at 75, lost 25% of his health before we even get to the next part. I'm draining through the meteor again. We're moving forward, and I want to skip to the phase 2. Now, we're about to hit phase 2 here, and Alysrazor will head to the middle and do tornadoes all around. You can hit the boss during this time, so just keep casting into it. There's no reason to stop. This might be a good opportunity to get your Doomguard out of your trinkets and gloves and potion all lined up, because she's going to land into this middle area here and just be very vulnerable and take extra damage. So this is when everybody's going to lust, and you want to try to get kicks out on these claw shapers, because she is giving the boss extra of this resource, and once this resource gets capped to 50%, Alysrazor will get up again and will start doing damage to everyone. So it is in your best interest to kick. You should kick if you can, because you're a ranged kick and no one else is going to be kicking. Trust me, they will not be kicking. And we want to do as much damage here as possible. Absolutely blasting her. We'll get her like 30%, I think. And once she hits 50, you can see her getting up. There we go. Big damage going to go out. Healers are working overtime here. And we're going to get buried. And when she hits 100, she's going to do a big knockback on everybody. You can drop a port here. I don't know if I used it this time, but I do use it sometimes. There it is. We got my haunt, move in, and then she drops a bunch of feathers, and you just take 3 feathers, and you go up into the air again. And honestly, at this point, if your DPS is good enough, you should be able to kill her during this second iteration of the air phases. And this is when you start draining, and this is when you start actually climbing during the drain phase, because this makes flying a lot easier, because you can just hold drain and maintain dot uptime and just refresh it if you need extra, if you get like spell power procs or something, you know. But it does make it easier because you don't really have to look spam casting Shadow Bolt. You're just draining and letting it go. And skipping ahead, I think we kill her in the air during this phase. I decided to put some damage into these hatchlings because they look kind of high, and I choose to drain the hatchling instead because those can kill your tanks. Just like that, our tank died. And I do some damage onto these guys too, because why not? Just killing them before I go back up in the air, get in position. Now, I only have 3, 2, 1. You can see I barely make it. Like, I almost lose my flying ability, which is awful. But we just stack up, and we kill her in the air. And that's Alysrazor. I mean, it's pretty... There's a lot of stuff going on, but it's not as much as you think. Your primary job, again, is collecting rings. We collect rings, and we push as fast as we can to get as many stacks as we can, and then you just do big damn. It's a pretty fun fight. I would recommend not playing Demo in this fight, though. So, there you go. Our 5th boss is Baleroc. Now, Baleroc is one of the tightest DPS checks in our pre-raid disc gear, and this is a boss you will mastery snapshot on. So the important things about Baleroc are, it depends on the jobs your guild gives you and your positioning. I chose to stand more in the range because as we were progging and the strategy we were using, I'm a very good soaker with Soul Link, and Soul Link does a considerable amount of mitigation while you're soaking, and you can tank 15 stacks pretty easily with Shadow Ward, Soulburn, Healthstone, and just Soul Link itself. And you're gonna see here that you see like the faint purple rising. This is what you're gonna be soaking, and I was the second soaker group, and I was the first soak. So I stand here and I wait for this Torment buff, and here we go. You can just see my health tanking, and I'm just doing my single target rotation. This doesn't give me a damage buff or anything. These have to be soaked, or they will decrease the amount of healing the target does, this tormented debuff. So I soak about 15 stacks and I get out. So the shaman doesn't have the best kit for this, so he can soak a little bit less and live. And once you soak, you kind of move out of the way because this buff will pass to other people you're standing by, like healers, and this reduces the healing they do. So you want to not spread this buff as best as possible. And then otherwise, this is like patchwork. You're doing the most damage you can as fast as you can. You can sneak into Shadow Flame if you wish, but it depends on where you're standing with your group. I should be with melee, honestly, because it's more single target DPS for the raid, but I'm not going to complain because we were prog in this boss, and this is about prog, right? So you ideally want to Shadow Flame when you can, but you don't want to spread your buff. So do that as much as you can. And then otherwise, you're standing still the entire time, doing your single target rotation, moving in and out. Now, you can see my buff fell off again. It's almost my turn to soak. So I could see the next shard is coming. This is my shard. I'm scanning the area, looking for where it's spawning, doing my rotation at the same time. And I can, wherever it is, I think I'm in a rocket boot over there. There it is. Boom. We soak again. And we do the same thing over and over again. I soak a lot more stacks than I should. You can see my pet almost died there. But we just don't want to stir this tormented buff. We stand in an open area and we do our single target rotation. And that's kind of it. Soak, don't die, stand in open space, single target. That's it. And this boss is an insanely tight DPS check. I think we set it to Berserk on Heroic. I'm gonna skip over a little bit, and I'm just ripping things on cooldown. Like you can see the Berserk timer up here. He's 1 second left on the Berserk timer. He's at 2%. Like we had a few deaths too, but it's a really tight DPS check. So, luckily for you, all you have to do is worry about soaking, not spreading, patchwork dummy, kill it. That's Baleroc. Next boss is Domo, and honestly, I really don't like this fight as a caster, at least with the strategy we're doing, and you'll see why shortly. This is a mastery snapshot fight. You just kind of stand in front of here, offer it, and do big damn to him, and stack together, pop your Doom Guard, everything. So this entire fight's based on this buff, and the longer you don't get hit by a spell, the more damage this will give you. I think up to 25%. You'll see why this is detrimental to my sanity a little bit later. This is just your 50% of the way there, you're almost there, blah blah blah. And you're going to see shortly my raid leader calls for us to spread. Now, he transfers it to a cat. Apparently the cat pounce works where it targets anybody with a mana bar, excluding enhancement and ret. I don't know if that is true, but that's the way we operated. So I stood out the entire time. This might be a good fight to use the Incubus if you're not going to Shadow Flame. But I didn't use it because I didn't really know about it at this time. And this is where it gets annoying because we're just sitting out here, ranged, and you're going to see the cat pouncing very shortly here. Everybody's spread out, little even area. We're leaping in 5. We still have our buff. We're still in the middle of our opener. Now, when the cat leaps, you lose your buff, right? And we're also not in melee, so we can't Shadow Flame, so we lose a lot of damage on Fell Hunter, and just the 2k, 1.5k DPS from Shadow Flame itself. So you want to have really good port usage here, because when the leap comes, if you see it in the air, and you're not standing near your port, you can get away without taking extra damage. But our only escapes are rocket boots and port, right? And you're going to have to react super quickly if you want to keep your buff. And I'm just going to say now, you're probably not going to keep your buff the first few times you're doing this. It's going to take a few minutes to adjust that. Also, if you look at the boss's health, this boss is 400 million health, the most health out of any of the bosses by a solid margin. So this is all you have to worry about in the beginning. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. We utilize the whole room. I think after 8 leaps or so, we all come back in and the boss transforms into human form, and you get these seeds, I think they're called, searing seeds. Now, these searing seeds have a random duration on everybody in the raid. You can see people, it's like 7 seconds, 16, 11, and this will do damage to you, and you will lose your buff. No matter what, you will lose your buff here. So, DKs are AMS in the application so they can keep their buff, little rats. But you can't really control that. This will explode on everybody nearby, so you just don't want to, hit people with it. And now we're reset with our buff. We move away a little bit. We don't want to be too close, because if the leaps are too close to melee, then they'll lose their buffs. This is a melee-esque fight. We got Alysrazor, they get Domo. That's the way she goes. What are we going to do? But this is basically a movable patchwork. Truly, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. There's only one other mechanic you're going to have to deal with, and it's very, very minor. You can see I port a little bit scared there because I don't want to lose my stacks. I just re-upped. I go in for a cheeky Shadow Flame. Probably shouldn't do that. Getting too close is really bad. I don't want to cause the boss to transform. But here's the big leap here. Another leap, and it's on me. I port. I don't think I lose my stacks there, which is nice, but we're running out of space on this side. You have to be very aware of where you're standing. Yep, that's when I lose my stacks. I have nothing left. I don't have boots. I don't have port. Now, what are you going to do? So we move forward. I want to move to the next part. Now, when he goes into this human form the second time, I don't know if that's exactly when he does it, but these fire seeds spawn, and these seeds, they target people, and they give you a stacking fire debuff, and you want to soak like 4 or 5 stacks and then move away. You don't have to stand right on top of them. They hit people, you can see, even over here, it hits people from very far away. But you don't want to take more than 4 or 5 stacks because it's a lot of damage, and also you lose your concentration, right? So when you're taking this damage, it does reset your buff. So ideally you don't soak it, but you really have to. You really have to. So just be a team player. So 4 or 5 stacks, go back in, see somebody else at 4 to 5 stacks. I think 2 people can soak each one, ideally, just moving in and out, which is nice. But you want to let your melee kind of keep the buff, because we're in a position where we can move around and still do our damage while soaking. And that's about it. And you repeat this process a few times until the boss is dead, watching out for leaps, and try to keep uptime on your buff as best as you can. But you're going to lose it because of seeds and leaps and bigger seeds. So what are you going to do about it? So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. We keep our buff as best as we can. Our rogues are absolutely decimating because it summons like these little clones, but those just get cleaved down instantly anyway. And that's about it. I mean, that's the whole fight. This is also one of the easier fights. If your guild's doing heroic the first week and you're not very confident in your ability to do it, I would recommend trying to get to Domo and doing him on heroic, and maybe Shannox and Lord Rhyolith, because those are the easy ones in my opinion. But that's the whole fight. There she goes. We also got close to this berserk timer. It's kind of a tight check because we had some people die, but you know, 10 seconds left. Not even close. There we go. All right, now we're probably getting to the boss that you're all here for, Rag. This is our kill for Rag from my POV, and I gotta say there's 4 phases to this boss and a lot to go over, so let's just talk about it. Now off the rip, this is a mastery set pull. You don't really have to worry about much in the grand scheme of things off the pull here. I do just Doomguard on pull. This fight is so long that you're gonna get a second Doomguard later, so just rip it on pull with all your procs and not worry about it. Now, if you're too close to the boss will knock back. There's also a random, this Wrath of Ragnaros, that knocks you back in range too, randomly, but there's a guaranteed knockback if you're close. So on pull, I like to get close, and then once I get knocked back for the first time, I try to stand out of the range of that knockback. You can still Shadow Flame around the tip of this marker on the ground, but you want to avoid these hammers. So sometimes I move in a little bit more and I'll get knocked back again, but sometimes there's nothing you can do. But standing in melee the whole time is the worst. You'll just keep getting knocked back. Now there's gonna be traps spawning around the room. You just saw one fly across the screen. So if you're stuck between 2 traps and you're scared you might get knocked into one, you can drop your port. In case just like that, in case Rag knocks you in a bad direction, you can emergency port and save the raid and yourself. A lot of embarrassment. The best way to dodge the hammer, it always comes out like this. Circle, circle, circle. Like a weird Venn diagram. You can always stand on one of the corners and it'll never hit you, because it always goes out in a T formation. So just watch out for that. And that's basically the whole first phase, is get the knockback, the hammer, and the traps. Now, we're popping traps. We're making sure we're full health for these pops. I'm gonna wait for a trap pop here, as they're gonna be doing it momentarily once everybody's full health. If you're not at 80% health, depending on your class, you will probably die. So we don't really have that problem because we have Soul Link, which I glyph Soul Link now, so that's 25% down. But there we go. I mean, you can see Buita's almost dead. Like if you're not topped off, you might die. So I'm gonna skip a little bit to phase 2. Now, phase 2 is at 70.45%. And I'm popping everything on cooldown because I want as much as my cooldowns as possible, but I'll obviously try to line up everything for the most amount of damage. So you can milk Rag a little bit here, which helps in the long run between the phases while he's casting his hammer. So you always want to be milking. And as soon as the hammer hits, he just goes underground so you can stop attacking. For these guys, there's a few things you could do here. And I usually just put Immolate up on all of them, Immolate and Corruption on the closest one to do some damage. Demon Leap is a good emergency stun here. If you're using an Incubus, you could use the Whiplash to knock back. But I just choose whichever one is kind of getting closest, or if they're grouped up, I will Shadow Flame and just Hellfire all of them and get everything at once. This is also a good time to re-up on Soul Shards if you feel like you need them. Now this is where it gets a little bit complicated because there's two ways to play this phase 2. This phase 2, these Molten Seeds are going to be coming out, and he's still going to be putting out the hammer. So we want to be doing as much damage to Rag here as possible to get out of this phase. Now, these seeds will be coming, and once these seeds are ready, we're going to be moving as a unit, and he drops all of them behind us, and if you get hit by that, you die. You do not want to get hit by that. So you see the seeds are about to explode here. At this point, I've decided, using my two school, is either focusing on single target to push the boss as fast as possible, or I summon my Fel Guard, Send It In, and Fellstorm. I was doing that a lot, and during this explode time, I would summon my Fel Guard and Fellstorm and Send It In during this explosion. But I decided that since we had 4 hunters absolutely destroying them, I would just focus on single target here. But you have that option during this explode time. Once you position yourself, you hard summon the Fel Guard, and once it explodes, 3, 2, 1, boom, you would Send It In and you just Fellstorm them. But once that happens, you kind of just move away, because if those elementals hit you, you will die because they do more damage based on how many elementals are nearby. And after the elementals die, you do a dance. There's 3 sections, just south, upper, middle, whatever. And you will die if you take this head on. You don't want to stand anywhere near it. It's a lot of damage, and then he does the hammer, and you're going to do this probably 3 times. So we're going to get in position again. You can see the timer, Molten Seeds, mid-combat repair, because we died a lot doing this, obviously. Now, Molten Seeds are about to happen again. 3, 2, 1. We go again. Boom. Let me just keep going. And just focusing on single target here. Not going to worry about the ads. The ads are going to melt. I just want to show you guys how fast these ads melt. They have 330k health, and look at this. So you could do this very rarely if you don't have an elemental targeting you. There's a good weak ore for that I have in my Discord if you want it. But otherwise, you want to get as far away from those as possible because they will kill you. So if you don't have one targeting you, you can jump in and do big damn. Get like a... I don't know if you could be bopped and jump in there. I didn't try that because I was scared for my safety during good attempts. But you might be able to do that, and that might be big damn. But this is the entire phase 2, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So he phases at 40.45 into phase 3. And we're still doing the dance, and there's going to be no more seedlings after this. Thank God. And we have another hammer phase similar to the beginning, but there's a caveat this time. There's these Scions, these L Scions. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to be saving one of our fire elementals here, one of our Sons of Flame. Our hunter was keeping track of that. And we will leave that one alive so we can do as much damage to these Scions as possible. Because we lust in phase 3 to push the boss as fast as we can. And we're just doing as much damage to these lava Scions and Suns as possible. The Suns are the priority, then the lava Scions. And they're all dead here. So we'll just multi-target these, get in close, Shadow Flame, and do as much as we can. Yeah, see that one with the moon? We're going to let that just tick down. We're not going to worry much about it. Now, as soon as he comes up, you got to go ham on this guy. You can let the melee cleave those, let the tanks kill the lava Scions at that point, but you want as much damage in the Rag as possible during this last window. Because this damage between this phase and phase 4 is the most important. Now, during this time, you'll have hammer and dance, and then you'll notice meteors will start coming out soon. The meteors will be coming out shortly. There's our first meteor. And we're knocking them into Rag, so we don't really have to worry that much about them. You can see the ICD of them where it's ready to be knocked back again. And now we're just doing as much damage as we possibly can, and we're dancing. And that's the entire phase. Dodge meteors, dodge hammer, dodge dance. Doing as much damage as possible. Now we're going to get into the final phase, phase 4. which is the most fun. And Rag's gonna come out and be at 50% health already. This is a good time to hardcast Felguard and do a Demon Soul swap. You might as well. You have plenty of downtime here. The meteors are still going to be active, and you'll have people assigned to doing them. We're not really good at doing them. You can spam Fel Flame, but our damage is much better on the boss here. And my Doomguard is up in 30 seconds, so I'm holding Blood Fury, Pot, and Gloves again. And this is where the important part starts to occur. As a DPS, your priority is going to be finding this ice patch right here. Because there is a debuff you get. I don't think you can see it on anyone yet on my frames, but you should be able to in a moment. This superheated debuff, and it stacks the longer you're not in the ice. So you just want to get to the ice as fast as possible to not take the debuff. And when he gets in this roots, he takes 50% extra damage and he's stunned. So this is a big DPS race. All while managing these meteors, and your bubble boys will be bubble boying, putting out these flames over here on the sides, but you just have to worry about doing as much damage to Rag as possible. And if you get picked by meteor, those are your two priorities. Meteor, standing in ice, doing damage. That is your thing. Now, you're going to notice when this second Breath of Frost comes up, the second ice patch, we're going to let this meteor come straight in, and you have a small window to do as much damage as possible to it. And then you don't need to deal with the meteor anymore. So you kill the meteor, it's going to die. Hopefully you get some good ice RNG maybe. And you stack in the next ice, and you kill the boss. That's it. Extra damage from roots. This meteor is going to come in again. We're going to kill this meteor very shortly. It's on me. Perfect example. It's on me. I'm not hitting the meteor. They come. Don't hit the meteor. Let it come in. I move a little bit back so it can come straight through. Perfect. We kill it. And then we move into the next patch. And that's the whole fight. Now, near the end, it gets kind of dicey. You can see the fire is kind of getting a little bit out of control. We have this extra ice one over here. They're trying to clear us a path. I don't think it's going very well. But we have fire that gets under the ice and it starts killing people, which is really bad. And we have the bubble boy here trying to save us. They're literally dancing around us as best as they can. And then I think we called the move to go over here. And the bubble boys are doing big bubble boy things and keeping us safe. And we're doing big dam, standing still, just turning as best as we can. And boom, Rag dies. That's the whole fight. Hey everyone, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I know I kind of ramble sometimes, but I really want to get as much detail as possible out for you guys in these fights. I want to mention that I'm going to be making an Affliction guide and a T12 BIS / T12 Mastery snapshotting best in slot videos very soon after this. But I wanted to just kind of get this out there. And if you guys have any tips or you disagree with something that I said, please leave a comment below, join my Discord, talk about it, because I'm not a monolith of perfect information. I'm learning things as we go, and I'm talking to people and hearing things from you guys, like the Incubus. Like, I can't believe that's a thing. But I hope to see you all soon, and if you like what you saw, please like and subscribe below. It's like a little bit of time to put together and kind of get my thoughts all together on each of these bosses. And I wish you all the best of luck in Firelands. Peace.